I'm on a bike trip where I brought the 9er RIP9 and the giant Trance 29 to be testing both bikes up here in the mountains and continuing my review of both bikes. But one thing that I'm really curious about is how does a short travel 29er trail bike like the Trance with 130 millimeters of travel in the front, 115 in the back, how does it do in this type of terrain where typically I will ride a longer travel trail bike? Normally I ride a bike with 150 in the front and 140 in the back. I find that really good for these trails. But the giant Trance 29 is really impressing me with how fluid that rear suspension feels. So today I'm heading out on the trails. I'm going to wear the GoPro and talk through my thoughts of how this bike does in the more rugged terrain of the mountains. So I'll do most of my talking on this video on flatter sections, which there's not many on this trail, or climbs, which I'm on now. So I'll talk about climbing first. So this Trance is almost 4 pounds lighter than the RIP. It's got a 34 fork instead of a 36. So you can definitely appreciate the climbing more of a shorter travel trail bike. So when I talk about Trance for this video, I'm talking about in general shorter travel trail bikes, and that's the purpose of this video, is to compare the two. Got a lot of rain last night, so I gotta be careful on these roots because I can slide out like I did there. Sun's coming out though. Hopefully the trail will dry up a bit for the descents. Really liking the way this bike climbs. This bike also has carbon rims. It does help with the climbing. So those instances where you gotta really just accelerate quickly around a corner, you can feel it. So on this climb that goes on forever and gets really steep in some pitches, I'm keeping the shock in the middle setting. I'm finding that to be perfect because this bike has a really solid pedaling platform when you're in the middle setting, but yet you still have enough suspension to absorb the roots and rocks as you're climbing, which is so important, especially when it's wet like today. There's been a few times I've slipped out, but for the most part I've been able to get over the roots and the rocks. Like this section right here, this is pretty rooty and rocky. Yeah, really good traction. All right, take a rest break and we'll start the descent. So this is no shock, but I prefer the shorter travel trail bike on the climbs. It just accelerates better, lower weight. But the real question is, how's the bike gonna feel on the descents? We're about to find out. Having to take it extra cautious today because the trail's wet. Maybe hard to see in the video, but these roots are still really wet from last night's rain. finishing this ride up on a gravel road back to the car. I will say that I am pretty blown away by this bike. This is the first time I've ridden it up in the mountains, and I was just amazed at how good the rear suspension feels. I've said it before, I'll say it again. There's no way this feels like 115 millimeters of travel. It feels like 130, 140. The only time you really notice it is if you go off a drop that's more than about 3 feet, or just a super chunky section. But man, on most trails that I ride, this is more than enough bike. The RIP9 and the long travel 29er, for what I do, is fun on the descents, but there's a penalty you pay on the climbs, and you gotta just ask yourself, is it worth it? It's really gonna come down to your style of riding. I don't do a lot of jumping. The only sending that I do is work emails on Monday morning. And so I don't need a huge bike. Like rides like this, you're climbing probably 70–80% of the ride as far as time is concerned. And you know, it's a lot of bike to slug around when you're doing these long climbs. Now, it's also going to depend on who you ride with. A lot of times when I come up with my buddies to ride here, they're all on cross-country bikes, and to try to keep up with them on a 31 pound trail bike takes some effort. Fortunately, I'm in pretty good shape, but still, this bike, oh, this gravel road goes way up from here. Here we go. Yeah, so I think my next Niner trail bike is gonna be a Jet 9. I love the RIP, and you're gonna hear in my reviews, that is a phenomenal bike. I won't go into it here, but I really like that bike. I also felt that this bike was a little bit more agile. I could kind of maneuver it a little bit better on the descents. And of course the climbs. Good grief, this is a steep gravel road. Forgot how steep this was. So, you know, part of that is a lighter weight bike. Part of that, I'm sure, is the carbon rims on this bike, which I'm really liking. They're not too harsh. They're very lively. But the shorter travel bikes, to me, there's sections on downhills where I actually prefer it. Now, like I said, if you're getting into really chunky, super fast, big drops, yeah, you're gonna want the longer travel. So that's my conclusion of this test. It was a little bit eye-opening for me. I'll do a standalone review of the Trance and the RIP9, but I wanted to do this comparison between a short and long travel trail bike, both 29ers. All right, I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching.